Hello, everyone. With 1 week to go before the draft, I think I do want to actually throw a mock draft out there. I have watched a lot of different mock drafts and kind of read a lot of mock drafts with these so-called experts.
Who in the hell is Mel Kiper, in a way?
Now, these people have put thousands and thousands and thousands of hours watching tape, watching games, watching college football. I don't really like college football that much. This is kind of like the NCAA March Madness tournament. You know how there's that one guy at the office who put thousands of hours into, he loves college basketball, knows everything about college basketball, finishes ninth. The girl in accounting that was just picking it based on people's jerseys finished first. Well, that's what we're going to do here. We're going to do a Steelers 7-round mock draft. And I'm going to call this the wishful thinking mock draft. I've watched a lot of, like I said, a lot of highlights, who the Steelers might take, who other teams might take, a lot of the combine, and I've decided that there's players that I like. And I'm not saying, like, I saw a mock draft the other day where they had Josh Allen going to the Steelers at 28. That's a little bit far-fetched, especially when the Browns could potentially take him at 1. I'm trying to stay in my lane, In my scenario, as you'll see in the next few picks, some of these players are going to fall a bit further than they're projected to fall. But not out of where their projected range is, I don't feel. So let's get right to it. With the first pick, the 28th overall selection, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Leighton, Vander, Esch, linebacker, Boise State. Now, this pick could easily be Rashaan Evans, but I'm going to give Vander Esch the edge here. The experts, the pundits, the people that do this for a living seem to think that this is going to be a Steelers business as usual year where the Steelers draft the best player available regardless of position. I respectfully disagree. Inside linebacker, especially after Shazier went down, was the worst position on defense by far, and it caused them to be gashed by the running game. So inside linebacker, I feel, not necessarily that they have to reach, but if one of the top inside linebackers in the draft is there at the end of the first round, they have to take them. There's rumors, a couple of different rumors in regards to that Evans may go as high as 21 or 22, I believe, to the Bengals. There's also some issues with Vander Esch in terms of injury history. Something about, him potentially failing or having neck issues. That seems to have been squelched. One of those odd stories that someone seems to have, made up. Vander Esch is concerned. His NFL projection potentially is like a Paul Posluszny, but there's also, obviously if they're comparing him to, the potential, he has the potential and ran the same roughly combine grades as, a Brian Urlacher. And that, I think, is something that they need to have on this team. That would shore up. Basically, they could arguably pick for luxury the rest of the way. I feel that inside linebacker has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed in the first round if the talent is there for it. With the 60th selection in the second round, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Mason Rudolph, quarterback, Oklahoma State. Now, here's a luxury pick here. The Steelers are taking the best available quarterback. I have seen Mason Rudolph go as high as the teens, even, right at a fringe top 10 in the first round, all the way to the late second round and sometimes early third round. I honestly don't think he will be here at this pick, but if he is here at this pick, you can't really fault the Steelers' reasoning for taking their QB of the future. Somebody to groom behind Ben for a couple years. the experts seem to forget kind of what the Steelers did last year in the draft. I've noticed on a few separate occasions. They always seem to take cornerback in the first round, even though the Steelers took 2 corners. Cameron Sutton has looked good. You know, he was injured a lot of the year, but when he came in relief, he was good. They also took Brian Allen in the 5th, and people keep mocking corners to the Steelers in round 1. I don't understand. But in this circumstance, they seem to think that if they took a Mason Rudolph, that he would come in and play as the 3rd string behind Landry Jones. But they took Josh Dobbs last year. So I think that would be Landry Jones' job that Rudolph would be taking, not Dobbs. And Dobbs would be the 3rd string. But Rudolph here, I think he has the potential. Definitely not someone you want to start right away. But, you know, given us a couple seasons to kind of soak up the knowledge behind Ben, I think it's a solid pick here, and I think he could be a good player if given the right grooming and situation. With the 92nd pick in the 3rd round, the Pittsburgh Steelers select James Washington, wide receiver, Oklahoma State. This is another situation where this is a luxury pick. The Steelers kind of have a surplus of wide receivers. I mean, you know Martavis Bryant is gone after this year, but this is one of those picks where it's like you're covering for the long run. I mean, it's not necessarily that he couldn't use another wide receiver. Also, this wide receiver just happens to be a Blitnikoff Award winner, and you know his quarterback was Mason Rudolph. So you're getting this duo together and keeping them together for, you know, the next 4 years at least. I don't know if he'll be here, but he is projected as a 2nd or 3rd round guy, and this would be late in the 3rd round. But if they do get him late in the 3rd round here, it's a steal of a pick. I think he will be a good wide receiver, and especially in that room of talented wide receivers, you know, I think that if they took that pick, that may be the end of Darius Hayward-Bay. There may even be the potential to then trade Bryant if they make this pick. I don't know if I necessarily do that when you have 1 more year unless the value is really good. But if this, you know, there's a lot of places they could go with this 3rd round, but I couldn't really argue if this was the 3rd round pick. The Steelers do not have a 4th round selection, so with the 148th pick in the 5th round, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Shaquem.Griffin, linebacker safety, UCF. This is another one of those situations. Now, I feel this is a potential need for the Steelers. Not necessarily because he can play, you know, he's kind of like a all-purpose tool. He's a linebacker, safety, potential for a corner. But any linebacker, safety, and special teams player, also, you know, a ton of heart. You know, guy plays with the chip. His combine was off the charts, which makes me think he's not going to be there. He was also invited to the combine, which also makes me think he's not going to be there. But, you know, as of even this last, like, week or two, he was graded, like, anywhere from 2nd to 5th round. 5th round at the latest. And this would be an earlier 5th round pick. And, you know, I would not mind if the Steelers took him. I think it's somebody they could use in a backup safety role, in a special teams role, and even a potential certain, you know, linebacker sets. You know, I also think, you know, it's a feel-good story. It's an incredible story. The guy was off the charts. If he's still sitting there in this pick, I feel like the Steelers have to take him unless there is really something else on the board that they're really looking at. With the 156th overall pick in the 5th round, the Steelers' 2nd selection, they pick Justin Watson, wide receiver, Penn. Now, I've argued till I was blue in the face about this having to be a defensive draft for the Steelers. They need help on defense. But as I really kind of looked into it, beyond inside linebacker, their next biggest need was safety. But they kind of addressed safety. They have Sean Davis, a 2nd round pick from 2 years ago. They signed Morgan Burnett from Green Bay. They also signed Nate Berhe, I believe it is. His nickname is the Missile, who's a quality special teams and backup safety. And they still have J.J. Wilcox on the roster. So I don't feel safety is necessarily the need here. And I know you're going to say, well, another wide receiver. They have too many wide receivers as it is, and you drafted Washington in the 3rd round, and I'll say this. This is a lottery ticket pick. This guy has the potential to be one of those sleeper, can't-miss guys, or, he's another 5th-round guy that never became anything. But for this pick, he also can potentially be converted to a tight end. So they said he has a potential maybe wide receiver, tight end. And in the Steelers system, him being converted to a tight end would not necessarily be a bad thing. He's a little bit small for a tight end, but he's got killer speed. So he's kind of like a, not necessarily on size, but he has like an Evan Ingram type set. So if it's something where he's converted to a tight end in certain spots or even just kept as a wide receiver, it'd be interesting to see how the Steelers would use him. If there's no other talent there on the board, and this guy is kind of one of those, could be, you see the potential in him. I mean, they brought him in for a visit, so they kind of see the potential of what he could be. So it's an interesting pick here if he's still there and the Steelers take him. The Steelers do not have a 6th-round selection. They have 2 7th-round selections. The first 7th-round selection is the 2nd pick of the 7th round. It is pick 220. So with the 220th selection in the 7th round, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Scarborough, running back, Alabama. Now, if Scarborough's still there with that second, I even flirted with the idea of the Steelers trading both their 7th round picks to jump into the 6th round to take Scarborough. Scarborough has had a ton of injuries over his career, but he's incredibly talented. He's also that big bruising back that the Steelers haven't really had since Bettis. I think it's an interesting combo, even if you sign Bell long term, or even to combo with Connor or to anyone else you get. I mean, he is not your typical running back. He has speed and explosiveness, but he also is a battering ram. So that's something they really, like I said, really have not had since Bettis. So if the injuries and other things scared people away, and he's sitting there at the top of the 7th, he's projected as a 5th round to 7th round guy. Other teams have been looking at him, but for some reason they shy away, and the Steelers have the potential even in the 6th to trade up, or the 7th, and he's still there. I say give it a shot because, at this point it's the 7th round. If you can find somebody that makes the team out of the 7th round, you've already won. With the Steelers' last pick in the draft, the 7th round selection, 246 overall, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Jordan Mailata, offensive lineman, South Sydney. Now, this is an interesting thing here. This guy, played rugby. I mean, he's a monster. He's a giant human being. He's running off-the-charts numbers. He's being projected as an offensive lineman, which is interesting. And, with Munchak being the coach, I'm sure they can groom him into something really good. But I'm just, as an offhand thing, why don't you try him as a tight end in potential tight end sets just to see, what his catching ability is. I mean, imagine that dude. He runs a 5 flat 40, but he's like 6'7" or 6'8", like 300 plus pounds, some giant human that, imagine if you converted him to a tight end. But even just he could be tackle eligible for touchdown tight end sets. That, it's interesting. I think just based on the fact that he's running off the charts numbers and all 32 teams were there at his workout, I think all 32 were there, that he's probably going to go higher than this. But if for some reason people are sleeping, I definitely take the lottery, take a chance on him just to see what you can get out of him. Well, that's it. That's my 7th round. Probably wishful thinking. Mock draft. Do you agree? Do you think the Steelers have a chance at any of those players, at any of the positions that they have? I really like a lot of those players. I think, if the draft shook out that way, and I don't think it really will, but I mean, if it did, I would be my perfect scenario. Now, there's players that I like, that I feel the Steelers like, that did not get drafted here. I think Evans could be potential in the first round. I think Jesse Bates could be a potential in the second or third round. A few other people that they've been looking at. Certain people that they brought in late round. I know they brought in Cedric Wilson Jr. and a couple other different wide receiver options. So they certainly are doing their homework. If this draft was to shake out this way, though, I would have almost no complaints, other than maybe they took too many offensive players when they have a little bit more defensive depth issues, although I think Keon Adams has the potential to fill out that edge rusher that they keep projecting to the Steelers. Also, I don't think the Steelers are going to take a corner within the first 5 rounds. They just drafted 2 corners last year. They drafted a corner in the first round and a safety who potentially could be a corner in Sean Davis, the year before that. So they signed Hayden. So they have, not saying they can't shore up by adding a corner, and if, the talent's there, maybe you do, but I don't think corner is a need for them. So it'll be interesting. Draft is a week out. It'll be very interesting. Let me know if you feel my draft is absurd, if you think there's no chance of getting any of these people who you feel the Steelers should take, at least in the first round. And if you like this, give us a like and a subscribe. And if you want me to see me do an entire first round mock draft for all 32 teams, just let me know in the comments below, and maybe I'll do one prior to the draft. But thank you for watching. I'm hoping this draft turns out this way. Go Steelers, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.